Claim is if you project a diffracted laser on the surface and you smoke DMT, you will see code running in surfaces. Yes, like in the Matrix.
And that terrified me.
I was like, that's just mind-boggling.
DMT was the tool that led me to the discovery.
When I first saw the phenomenon, I was like,
but then it was actually like, whoa, what is happening?
am I losing my mind?
I kept asking myself, how are all of us seeing the same thing?
Oh my God, it changing shapes right there.
The laser was revealing numbers and letters running in a pattern.
It looked like programming code.
It's definitely saying something, and I just want to take a picture of it and translate it. Wow. You see that?
And each angle shows you different layers, different ways through it.
It's not like a hallucination. It has spatial awareness and permanence.
By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. He gathereth the waters of the sea together as an heap. He layeth up the depth in storehouses. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. For he spake, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast.
Hello and welcome to Kingdom of Context. I'm Sean. I want to thank you for joining us here for a unique installment of our Investigating Babylon series. And this one actually is going to kind of tie along with some of the aspects of the science of giants. And this is actually part 3 in our Investigating Babylon series. And so I just want to encourage everyone, if you haven't already seen our 21-part series, Investigating Babylon, go check it out. It's under our playlists here on Kingdom of Context, here on YouTube. And welcome everyone in the live chat. Appreciate you guys being here. Today we're going to be talking about this phenomenon that's been going viral for the past year. This idea that you can see code if you're on a certain type of hallucinogen and looking through a laser light, looking from the perspective of the laser is now your lens. Not that the laser is going into your eye, but that the laser is your lens. You can look through the area and space that the laser is shooting, and it'll help you see unique things on all surfaces and inside surfaces. It's kind of a fascinating little viral claim that's been going around that people have been testing for like a year now. We're going to talk about its implications, where they're taking the narrative from it to other places. And of course, what does the scripture say? It's always very important. Very important. But welcome everyone here in the live chat. I appreciate you guys being here today. Drop a thumbs up, hit that like button if you're here, if you think this is going to be a positive show. And I say, let's jump right into it. All right, so we're going to look at a few things here, and then we're going to talk about some very important scriptures, historical information as well. As always, we try to be well-rounded with this approach.
Seen the DMT experiment with the laser?
I have seen it on Instagram, and I heard you and Danny talking about it. So you've done it.
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram and flew Danny to my house right away.
Like, break this down for people, because it got shared amongst my group, and it's like, what the fuck?
Exactly. And that's the only question you're still
going to... Guys, I hope everyone's an adult here. Some of these clips are going to have some naughty language. You know, hopefully you already teach your children not to say naughty language. They already hear it everywhere they go anyway, but just hopefully you understand how to teach them to filter that out.
Going to have after you see it.
It doesn't answer any questions. It just invites a lot more.
Yeah, nothing else. There's code. Absolutely, there is code.
So the code's not like spinning there. It's like, it's literally like kind of written out static.
It's static. I can move the laser up and down and see all of the letters, but it's like 3-dimensional. So I can get close to the wall. I can look down inside of the laser that way, and I can look up in the laser that way.
What's your best guess at explaining that?
I would be a fool.
Okay. We can just leave it at that.
Maybe it's a universal consciousness that we're projecting something on to it.
Okay, did you guys hear that? So what they're claiming is that you look through the laser that's passing in front of your eyes, perpendicular, and they're seeing something that looks like a code. Different people are saying they see the exact same things, and it's static. It's not something that's like, it's not, they're comparing it to the Matrix because it's the only like visual representation in our cultural generation in the past, 30 years now since the Matrix movie came out, of seeing all the little code run down the screen. It doesn't look like that. They're not describing it like that. They're actually saying that it's static, which is interesting. And apparently they're saying the people that are doing it, we're going to watch some other clips. They've been taking DMT in states where it's legal, I'm guessing. And if anyone's unaware, DMT is a type of hallucinogen, and it's considered a natural hallucinogen that literally grows from grass and other places that you can strip it out of grass. And the idea, like when I first heard of DMT back in the day, it was of course Joe Rogan talking about deprivation chambers and DMT and all this kind of stuff, and seeing machine elves and tripping on this stuff. And the way he described it, and everyone else who he spoke with on his show that described this new type of hallucinogen, which some people tried to claim it was less harmful than hallucinogens from like the 60s and 70s with the drug revolution. What they would describe is they would take a hit or a smell or a sniff of this DMT, and it would just knock them out for like 10 minutes, and they would start having these visions, and they would see geometric patterns and shapes, and they would have discussions with these entities that had advanced knowledge. And that was how it first got introduced. But now they're saying that you could take, apparently they're taking small amounts, because as we're going to watch in some of these videos here in a minute, these people that are claiming that they can take a hit off the DMT, but they're not passing out. They're not going into a trance. They're not going to sleep. They're awake, and they're looking through a laser that's projected onto a surface, whether it's a wall or their skin or a table or whatnot. And they're saying they can see through the laser into the surface and seeing static numbers and letters in there. Okay. And they've described these static numbers and letters as being a mixture of Hebrew, Aramaic, and kanji, or like as Japanese letters, which is fascinating because supposedly they've had hundreds of people do it in the past year. Some people not even told what to see. They didn't, show them videos ahead of time of other people doing this. They just, all pun intended, had them go in blind and say, okay, here, we're going to do this, take a little hit of DMT, and then now just look at this and tell me what you see. And they're all reporting, well, the great majority of these people that supposedly are doing this by the hundreds are reporting the same static letters and numbers they're seeing inside the laser light. It's not inside the laser. They claim they're looking through the laser lights into the wall. It's almost as if the frequency of the laser light is allowing them to see into a structure, or at least see what they're claiming is the code that is in the structure. So that's interesting. Okay. So that's what we're looking at right here with some of this, that first video you just saw. So let's listen to another one real quick.
Like a DeWalt laser level at Home Depot, and it paints that line across the wall. And then you put something in front of the laser to kind of diffuse it. So you take it from being a really thin laser line and then spread that sucker out so it's like 6 inches wide, big fat line of laser on the wall. And then you get somebody that's on DMT. When you look at that, number one, you can see through the wall. Right where the laser is, you can see through the wall. You can even put it on your arm, and the code changes on your arm.
What?
I didn't believe this. So this.
Okay, so when I first started seeing some of these videos, a while back, I didn't give it much mind, right? I thought to myself, oh, okay, people tripping. People are tripping. They're going to see stuff. That's what happens when you trip. Don't do those type of hallucinogens, right? It's kind of commonplace. We've had people for how many decades now telling us that they'll be tripping on some sort of hallucinogen, acid, mushrooms, whatever, and they can see a person's aura. Okay, they'll see people glowing. Now many people will see the same type of things. I didn't realize until I watched some of these videos that some of the testimony from the past, they also claimed that they were seeing code and they were tripping on different types of hallucinogens, not just DMT. And so I thought to myself, okay, wait a minute. So why didn't we ever hear about that? Why didn't that become a viral sensation? Well, for one, it was before the internet. It was before TikToks and Reels. And it was like, so if someone's tripping, back in the days of Cheech and Chong, right? And then you try to, for one, they're not even going to tell their people about it because they don't want to get in trouble, right? If they're kids, like teenagers or whatnot. But even if they're just be labeled as stoners. Oh yeah, you're just one of those stoner. You're a slacker who's taking drugs, right? And they're not given much credence or belief anyway. So what's different about this in modernity, not just the way that it can explode and go viral with the new social media and the technology we have, so that people will be interested to do it themselves. And that's one of the things I think is alarming about this. But also you have large podcasts. This, like what you're watching here is a clip from the Sean Ryan podcast. Okay. And so, I mean, Sean Ryan's literally like former CIA. You know, they say you're never truly former CIA, but that you're lifelong CIA. Isn't it wild that our own CIA has a podcast? It's crazy. And of course, they're talking about it also on the Joe Rogan show. And it's interesting, right? And so this is stirring up the average person to say, wait a minute. So you're telling me I can go spend $30 on a DMT hit and get a $10 DeWalt laser from Home Depot or Ace Hardware store? And I can see the code. I can see something crazy, right? Now, again, I'm not. It's so funny. My wife just got here, and I'm literally building up to what I'm about to say is what she's saying right now as well. This is in no way, as hopefully you can already tell from my language, this is in no way do we endorse practicing or trying this at all, right? Do not do hallucinogens, kids, in case it's not aware, in case it's not super obvious by the 8 years of videos that we've already put out. All right, we're not stoners. Don't do hallucinogens. Don't, lose your mind to the point where you're trying to, speak with machine elves and, trip and think that you're floating into a wall or something. Like, don't do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs at all. Okay, should be pretty obvious from what we teach, our current and longstanding reputation of how we preach the scriptures, the truth of God. Obviously calls for sobriety of mind. So I don't recommend trying this, but the point is this is being pushed viral. Kids will try this. And the narrative, since people already are saying by the hundreds, we're seeing the same things. They're seeing the same letters and numbers, and they're like sketching them out, and they're all affirming, oh yeah, it kind of looked like Japanese or Hebrew or something. It's going to get more people wanting to try this stuff. Okay. So at the risk of sounding like a dad, don't do drugs, kids. At the risk of sounding like a boomer, don't do drugs, kids. Should be obvious. Adults don't do drugs, right? But the point that they're taking this, what I see them taking this into is the whole, oh, we're all living a simulation Gnostic narrative. Okay. And so this is why it's becoming a big push into the culture and why it matters in the conversation. Okay. And we're going to watch some more stuff and go over scriptures like I talk about, but let's just give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's say they are. I haven't done it. I can't attest to what they're seeing, but let's say the hundreds of people that are saying they're seeing the same things, that you can put a laser against the wall and look through the laser and see letters and numbers inside the wall. You can put it against your skin and see letters and numbers even on your own skin. That's the part that threw me. That's the part where I was like, okay, so it's not just putting a laser level against a wall and possibly it, having a scatter effect against the paint or the drywall or something like that. Now they're putting it on different surfaces, like your own skin, and you're seeing the same concept as well. That's interesting. That's interesting, guys. All right, so let's keep listening.
Through the wall. You can even put it on your arm, and the code changes on your arm.
What?
I didn't believe this. So this was viral on TikTok. I see this video, and I'm watching the behavior of the people observing everything to see if they're lying. I'm a behavioral expert. I'm looking for deception and lies and all this stuff all the time. They were all truthful. So I called my assistant. I said, get this guy, wherever he is, fly him to my house where we can meet up somewhere. DMT is not illegal. And shine this thing on the wall. And I've never done DMT before until this day. And oh my God, that's a whole nother 3-hour podcast. But while you are in the DMT state, you get close to the wall and you can see code that looks kind of like alien writing.
Again, this is different because look, the guy's awake. Okay. My like not introduction, because I've never done EMT, but the introduction to the idea that DMT was like a new form of hallucinogen was, I was under the impression that when people sniffed it or did something with it, I don't know what they did. I think they just sniffed it. Or ate. I don't know if they ate. I don't know. I don't do drugs, so I don't even know how they put it in their body. But the point is, my interpretation or my understanding from hearing the people talk about it in the last like 6-7 years was that the moment you did it, you just like fell back on the couch and passed out. I remember Joe Rogan even telling a guest one time saying like, "Oh, if you're going to do it, make sure you're just sitting down, sitting on a couch, because you're just going to pass out and fall over, right? And you'll just wake up in 10 minutes and you'll have this crazy trip that all these experiences and sights you saw." Right. So that's where apparently they figured out a way to microdose. Is that the language to all the former druggies in the live chat? Let me know. Is that a thing? You can microdose DMT maybe to where they're still awake, but yet they've done enough of it to where it is activating the part of their brain that is relaxing certain areas, if you will, allowing them to see things their eyes don't normally see.
Alien writing like you'd see, and then some that look like kanji, Japanese characters. But the thing is, when you're hallucinating something, like sometimes hallucinations change and warp and modify a little bit. This is permanent, solid. So like, and if you move your head, the code stays in the same place. And if you move the laser on the wall, like you take the laser level and scoot it up, different code reveals itself as the laser is moving.
Wow.
And then you get 2 or 3 people lined up. Everyone see the same exact characters if they're all looking at the same place.
Man, that is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy. We'll watch one more real quick, kind of set the stage for what we're looking at here, okay? What we'll be talking about.
I haven't told him anything. Okay, just tell me what you see.
Oh my God, come on.
Wow, what the fuck?
Yeah, sorry, language alert. Just, we're all adults here.
Holy shit. I just saw something. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Oh, I've seen that. I feel it.
I've been under the influence of mind-altering substances a lot, but I've never seen anything like that.
Okay, so for all the former druggies, I'm sorry, I don't want to call you guys. For all the former experimentalists in the crowd, right, who've done mind-altering substances, types of hallucinogens, peyote, mushrooms, mescaline, like what? Tell me, let me know if you're willing to let me know. Look, we all believe we're sanctified in Christ now, right? So it's okay. We all had a former life. Let me know if, like, these people are saying, like, oh, I've never seen anything like this. Have you ever seen anything when you were tripping akin to this on any type of substance or mushroom or whatever you were doing? And is there any correlation? Have any of you guys that are watching this right now, have you tried this experiment already in the past year? Yeah, I don't know what to exactly say. Like, you know, if you've tripped, if you've licked a frog or smoked a shroom, or I don't know, eaten shroom. Do you smoke or eat shrooms? What do you do? I don't know. Let me know what your experience is. If it's anything like this, these people are freaked out because these are saying like, oh, I hallucinate all the time. I do drugs all the time. I've never seen anything like this.
I showed over 100 people, and I kept asking myself, how are all of us seeing the same thing?
Oh my God. It changing shapes right there.
The laser was revealing numbers and letters running in a pattern.
Pyramids like this big.
Okay, so we already have some people coming in the live chat saying, someone just said yes. I don't know if you're answering yes to my question or yes that you formerly did hallucinogens and now you don't anymore. Either way. Some are saying they never saw languages or numbers. Others said they did mescaline and saw an aura. Someone else said never, and I grew up in the 60s. Okay, good for you. That's awesome. Probably saved yourself a lot of trauma. Yolanda, are you saying your brother was attacked by demons while doing hallucinogens or just in general? What? Let me know specifically. Okay, so Temi, look, I already understand that you're very much against me talking about this topic. I get it, but brother, before this came out, I've never heard anyone in my life tell me that they can see letters and numbers inside of a wall looking through a field that a laser shining through. I've never seen anyone say anything like this, brother, ever. I've never seen any report on this. I've never seen, and I'm the guy that loves science and weird stuff and watches, and my algorithm would probably make you guys laugh, right? I've never seen anything like this. No one's ever talked about this before last year. So if you can see languages and numbers without lasers as you look at walls, God bless you. Maybe you have a gift of being a prophet. Maybe you're a seer or something. I don't know, brother, but no one's ever said that they could do this without these two variables within this experiment. And some people will even try to say, well, look, this isn't scientifically verifiable. Okay. Let's rein ourselves in and remember what science does claim that is contrary to reality. Okay. Versus, okay. So look, what is basic science, right? Something that's observable, testable, repeatable. Hundreds of people observing the same thing, doing the same tests with the same variables, repeating the same conclusions and observations. It's no more basic science than that. So, something to consider. Okay. So some people saying, okay, so all right, I understand. Sure. I understand. Drugs can open you up to demons. Yes. Demons play tricks on people's minds. Yes, they do. The laser thing could be the demon. Is that what you're saying? Why is it just a laser? Right. And here's what's interesting about this, because when we understand how the world was created through sound and light and cymatics, a laser is a focused light in a specific frequency. And why haven't people been able to do this? Like, how many people have worked with lasers for the last 70 years? And no one's ever said, oh, wait a minute, dim the lights a little bit more. Look at the laser. How many people have set up lasers, looked at lasers, measured their width, their beam, their luminosity, their strength? Like, no one had cameras on lasers, and no one's ever seen this with the laser thing, right? Why? Okay, so let's just remember there's two variables within this concept, right? People are doing a type of hallucinogen that relaxes or opens up the mind in some way that we don't normally see, and it's affecting the way things are being transmitted from the eye to the brain, okay? Hence the concept of a hallucinogen. That's one of the variables. The other variable is that they're specifically looking through a laser, okay? So if a demon wanted to, people already see apparitions, manifestations of demons sober without doing hallucinogens and without lasers present. So this is what I'm trying to say, guys. There's something unique here in the fact that this is a observable, testable, demonstrable, repeatedly demonstrable experiment that people are doing with these two variables. And it's not the placement of a specific laser. They use different types of lasers. And it's not the placement of the laser specifically in a specific way, in a specific angle, on a specific surface. No, they're putting on different surfaces at different angles. And they even say that you can see it laterally, but then you can stand over the laser, look down in, you can see it down through the laser as well, which is like they were talking about. Even if you move the laser, it starts to change the code. Okay, I saw someone when I was researching this, I was watching different videos, reading the comments as well, and someone in one of the comments tried to say, "Oh, it's just on the crystal inside of the DeWalt laser. It's just they etched in the crystal some letters and numbers from the Chinese manufacturer, and that's what people are seeing." And I'm like, bro, I don't have a PhD in lasers. But from what little I do understand about lasers, that's not how they work either, right? They don't put static, like if you did etch anything onto a laser and then created an actual laser out of that ruby or that gemstone and whatever it is, because that's how lasers are made. Usually, guys, you have to look up how lasers are made. And you shot energy through it to make it into a laser beam. No one has ever reported those serial numbers or manufacturer code or identifier being present in a static form on the laser. Look, I could get it if you were like, oh, hey, it's projected onto a surface over there because it's, shooting through an etching in the crystal of the laser. But this is like at any point you look at the laser, you're seeing the code facing you. That's different, right? Anyway, I don't have time to go into the three-dimensionality of that hypothesis, but the point is, it's something that is caught people's eye. People have never done this or seen this before, and there's specific variables involved in this. And what they're doing, which is why I'm trying to warn people not to do this and not to be swayed away from whatever they're going to conclude with this, which they're already trying to conclude into, you live in a simulation. I just want to remind people, we're going to go over the scriptures, but where you truly live and what God says about you and about this place where you live, okay? No, it's not just this guy. Yeah. People are doing it on their own experiments. Yeah. Okay, we'll get back to this.
Here, and it looks like code.
It looked like
That was a thick laser.
That's why I told you.
Saying something, and I just want to take a picture of it and translate it.
Wow.
You see that?
Okay, so yeah, it's not stuck.
No.
It's not because of the light.
No, it's on its own side. Light is just literally revealing it.
And each angle shows you different layers, different ways through it.
I could see through the wall. It's not like a hallucination. It has spatial awareness and permanence. I don't know. Whoa.
For centuries, mankind has attempted to explore these psychedelic, altered states, but we've never had a repeatable, testable phenomenon to observe until now.
Wow. Okay. Repeatable, testable phenomenon to observe. Okay, it's the basics of science, guys. Okay. I just want to remind you guys that everyone already believes this is possible if you believe the Bible. We're going to go into the scriptures, right? People, even the people here in the live crowd saying, oh, this could just be demons causing these people to do this because they're opening themselves up to demons because they've done a hallucinogen. Okay, sure it could be. But again, demons have been messing with people for years already without a laser involved. Why wouldn't they just cause them to see code on the wall or on their skin without a laser involved? Without a hallucinogen at all. Okay. And at the same time, we also understand that there is a gift of the spirit of discerning of spirits. And some people say they can see demons, just like they can see angels. So it's interesting that the mind there is something that's observable, even in scripture. We're going to go over the scriptures as I keep saying over and over and over again. I hope that you guys don't forget who I am. Okay. We're going to go over the scriptures where there's multiple examples of people's minds either being clouded or opened, and they see different things that they didn't normally see or that they weren't seeing before. So there is something unique about this topic where the brain is affected through what you see and your perception and how it, communicates and forms your reality. All right. Okay. Keep going.
I'm obsessed. It's like you can see through the laser into another dimension.
I mean, like, take yourself to that. Like, I just made a connection. Did nobody?
All right. So let's jump in here. All right, let me fix this 1 second. Get this here. That's not it. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's look at some interesting concepts here. Okay, this is a guy from the 15th, 16th century, died around 1535. His name was Henrik Cornelius Agrippa. German Renaissance polymath, physician, legal scholar, alchemist, soldier, knight, theologian, and occult writer. It's quite the resume, quite the posthumous resume. Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, published in 1533, drew heavily upon Kabbalah, Hermeticism, and Neoplatonism. His book was widely influential among esoterics of his early modern period and was condemned as heretical by the Inquisitor of Cologne, I think it's just called Cologne. So remember, this is around the time of the Spanish Inquisition. This people are ramping up, going after witches and warlocks and going after all sorts of witchcraft. And this is an interesting concept, right? This guy, who actually is considered a theologian, writes 3 books on the occult, and he gets a lot of flack for this. They didn't kill him, but here's what he says at the last. Here's the book on the right from history. Okay, 3 books of occult philosophy, and then this is in the last book, book 3, where he tries to explain his journey with this. He says, "But of magic I wrote whilst I was very young 3 large books, which I called Of Occult Philosophy, in which what was then through the curiosity of my youth erroneous." By the way, guys, remember Colossians 2:8, that we not be enslaved or entrapped with vain philosophy, because it derives from elemental forces, which, if you look up, that Greek word is for astral spirits, unclean spirits. Okay, this is why philosophy originated with Zeus worshippers and Pythagorean serpent worship cults. Okay, Socrates admits in his writings, which Tertullian repeats in the 2nd century AD, that Socrates is admitting in his writings that he had a demon influence most of his thoughts for his incredible philosophy. Okay, so this is why it should not surprise you, if you've been listening to our channel for any time, that this guy is putting these 2 words together, occult and philosophy. All right, so when people look. Some people will just redefine philosophy. Oh, it's just a way in how to think logically, or it's a way in how to think about something in a structured pattern. Okay, sure. Okay, if you want to, as long as you can keep it that benign. But when you start importing a whole bunch of presuppositions with definitions attached to them that derive from Platonism, from Plato, Zeus worshiper, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, right? As you start importing all their presuppositions and definitions into your system of logical structured thinking, that's where I would suggest you're leaning on the wisdom of the world. 1 Corinthians 3, right? The wisdom of the world's foolishness, right? You should be leaning on Yahweh's wisdom. So this guy is admitting when he was young, he was very young, he wrote 3 large books, which he called Of Occult Philosophy, and which was then through the curiosity of my youth erroneous. I, now being more advised and willing to have retracted by this recantation, I formerly spent much time and costs in these vanities. At last I grew so wise as to be able to dissuade others from this destruction. For whosoever do not in the truth, nor in the power of God, but in the deceit of devils, according to the operation of wicked spirits, presume to divine and prophesy, and practicing through magical vanities, exorcisms, incantations, and other demoniacal works and deceits of idolatry, boasting of delusions and phantasms, presently ceasing, brag that they can do miracles. I say all these shall, with Jannes and Jambres and Simon Magus, be destined to the torments of eternal fire. So this is this guy at the end of his book saying, look, I got caught up in all this stuff when I was younger, but now I'm trusting in God, and anyone that's going after this stuff is going to hellfire. Okay? So this is in book 1 of his 3 books. He's trying to explain the concepts of enchantments and imprecations. He says, now there's such kind of bindings as these made by sorceries, collieries, enjoyments, love potions, by binding to and hanging up things, by rings, by charms, by strong imaginations, by passions, by images and characters, by enchantments and imprecations. Okay. So just again, a guy who spent a whole bunch of time. If you actually go through his whole biography, I didn't have time to include all of his details in here. He actually joined a secret occult society at one point, and I think it was while he was getting his doctorate in theology. And so anyway, long story short, he almost got like excommunicated. He had people that called him heretical because he was talking about this, and he basically at one point in his life he was trying to like not speak in official protest, but he just disagreed with them doing witch hunts and trying to burn witches. And not that he was supporting the occult or witchcraft, but he just thought that was unfair. But since he was also studying this, it got him lumped into being, oh, you must be a sorcerer or a witch and you're defending them. He just didn't like the way they were handling them. But it's interesting because in the occult and esoteric traditions, an imprecation is a formalized curse, a malediction, or an appeal to supernatural forces to bring harm, calamity, or divine judgment upon a specific person, group, or entity. It comes from this Latin word imprecare, meaning to call down upon. And while a general curse might be a simple expression of ill will, an imprecation often takes on a ceremonial or ritualistic form. Key characteristics of an imprecation include invoking higher powers. And I want you to remember that, okay? So the idea of an imprecation is that you're invoking a higher power. What is that power? We're gonna go to the ultimate example given in scripture by the bad guys, okay? Unlike some forms of sympathetic or low magic that rely purely on the practitioner's personal energy, an imprecation typically calls upon external forces such as deity, spirits, demons, or cosmic laws to execute the punishment. So this is a guy named Eliphaz Levi. That was actually his pseudonym name. He used this name because he just basically became an occultist and didn't want to get persecuted. He was a highly influential French occultist, ceremonial magician, and author. And after abandoning a promising career in the Catholic priesthood, you cannot make this up. Can't make this up. Guys, I know I've been promising you for a couple of years now, but 42 series, my Catholic expose is coming. It is coming. After this, he dedicated his life to the esoteric arts. Operating under his Hebrew pen name, Levi penned over 20 books on magic, Kabbalah, and alchemy, shaping the modern occult revival, even having a strong influence on Aleister Crowley. All right, so just going over some influential characters in the past 400 or 500 years. This is some of his book he wrote. It's called Levi's Dogma et Ritual à Haute Magie, also translates as Transcendental Magic. And he wrote this from 1854 to 1856. It's one of the most influential 19th century occult syntheses. He includes dedicated chapters on enchantments and in both doctrine and ritual sections and places them with high magic. Okay? So this is going to make more sense. Stay with me. This is going to make more sense when we get into some of this stuff in just a minute. Levi defines magic overall as the science of ancient magi and the exact and absolute science of nature and her laws, centered on the directed will and imagination operating through the astral light. What did I just say earlier about Colossians 2:8? If you look up that Greek word for elementary forces, they're called astral forces. All right? Astral light, light of demons, false light, false knowledge. Okay? Enchantments form part of this system, operations that project the will via ritual symbols, verbal formulas to produce specific effects. He had distinguished legitimate high magic, balanced, knowledgeable will, from the misuse or black magic. Okay? Again, with most occultists, they live in a fantasy world where they think that they can distinguish between types of magic, like white magic and black magic. They call it high magic or noble magic, appealing to, these are just the laws of nature, right? But the whole thing is that they're trying to manipulate or use that law of nature outside of its intended use for their benefit, which is the manipulation, which is the sorcery part, which is the forbidden part. Yahweh's like, no, I created a thing to work like it is. You stop messing with it. You stop trying to manipulate what I created for your benefit. And you should go out and just earn your living, mind your business, walk in humility, walk in love and justice, forgive those who've hurt you. Don't try to manipulate circumstances to get power or love or whatever, right? So all the time, you want to weed through the language of the occultists, and they act like they're noble. They want to be viewed as Gandalf the White, okay? They want to be viewed as a good magician who just does white magic, and they're just here to help and heal, right? That's the way they want to be viewed. But they're delving, the whole premise of what they're doing is delving into a realm where they don't trust the creator and what he made and how he said to live life. And they're trying to manipulate aspects of it, which is why sorcery, enchantments, witchcraft is forbidden in Deuteronomy 18. All right. So let me just start back over. He says he distinguishes legitimate high magic from misuse or black magic while still discussing enchantments and spells as real techniques within the broader tradition. Levi's work heavily influenced later occultists and helped revive interest in structured ritual magic. Okay. And that's a picture of his book that he wrote. Literally Baphomet's on it. So in the philosophy of Hermeticism, imprecations work under the premise that spoken words carry a vibratory resonance that can alter the fabric of reality, particularly when charged by intense emotion or will. Okay, so this is what we're going to interesting. All right, we're talking about imprecations. What were they? Curses, imprecations, enchantments. Right, they're very synonymous words, and the idea is that they can be enacted through a ritualistic structure, through words, through writing, through a ritual. Right. So this is not the concept of black magic in the sense that, it's a trauma-based mind control, in the sense that you're going to forcibly enact something on somebody to get them to break their mind and their psyche and all this kind of stuff, or you're not offering up a victim to a god on an altar that type, right? So this is a little bit different, okay? So in Vedic traditions, they strongly believe that the universe is a manifestation of sound and vibration, a concept known as the Nada Brahma. And through the precise intonation of Vedic mantras, the performance of rituals like fire ceremonies, which they call yajnas, practitioners seek to harmonize with and consciously influence the subtle frequencies of existence. Okay, so what I say earlier, right? What do we know from Scripture? God spoke, said, "Let there be light." Boom, light, right? He's called the God of light, in whom there's no shadow, right? Let there be light. He speaks, that's vibration, creates light. There's matter that's created. This is called cymatics. It creates form and function from the light and the sound waves upon the matter. Okay? So this is why there was heavens and the earth are created, but the earth there was darkness. And then he spoke over the earth that was unformed in the waters with his voice and said, "Let there be light." So now we have all the proper ingredients for cymatics to work for matter to take on shape, form, and function. Okay? This is like basic physics. All right. I'm not trying to go too deep here. The point is, the ancient cultures, we've talked about the Vedic belief systems in our Investigating Babylon and our 42 series previously, highly occultic belief systems. And they believe that the word Brahma meant pure doctrine. So it's sound belief. And this particular thing, they're literally adding the actual concept of sound, how you hear through your ears, sound, with the pure spoken word that they believe has to be spoken in a specific way in order to create the right sound that can actually influence the frequencies of existence. Okay? They're trying to manifest changes in the reality for some benefit. Now, in case you didn't know, the Sanskrit language, the language of the ancient Vedic religion, they believe that each word and the letters used in the word specifically related, like the sounds that it made related to the object that it was, and that object was made of those sounds. Like that was their ancient belief of the Sanskrit language. Okay. By the way, just crazy fact here. In 1985, a guy from NASA decided that he was going to use Sanskrit to create the perfect AI programming code. So anyway, this is just giving you some understanding here, okay? Remember always we talked about in one of our 42 series, right, where we talked about the impossible spell. That's the name of the video, where I'm about to repeat some information from that, where we looked at the Trimurti, right, what they call the double trinity, the Trimurti, which is the two triangles upside down with each other, right? It creates a 6-point star, what looks like the Star of David, right? So that they would put these two, one triangle right side up, the other one upside down, put them together to the point where all points, all the 6 points on the two triangles created the 6-point star, and they called it the Trimurti, and they said it was the visual representation of the mantra, the Om, right? When you've seen those movies, where they're like chanting OHM, Om, and they're like sitting in circles, with their fingers touched on their knees, and they're chanting Om in meditation. That what they're trying to do is tap into the fabric of reality through this specific frequency with chanting the Trimurti. They think it's going to help them get to sound doctrine, get to enlightenment, get to whatever, right? So yes, there's also in Indian culture, there's good witches and bad witches, right? There's good shaman and bad shaman. Okay. So they're all bad in my opinion. I'm just saying they like to qualify themselves as well, as far as, oh, we're doing good. good Vedic magic. And there's some other people that try to get bad with it, but no, it's just the window dressing, right? Just like Harry Potter is like the window dressing for witchcraft, right? You got all these kids interested in witchcraft thinking, oh, I'm just going to take a little bitty wand and just do a couple little silly things. And I've got a little Dobby running around. He's so cute. And I've got, friends, and we're having antics, and, all of it's just window dressing to get you into the world of the occult. Okay. All right. Let's get this to the meat. Okay. 1 Enoch 6, 1-6. It came to pass when the children of men had multiplied in those days and were born unto beautiful and comely daughters, and the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose wives from among the children of men and beget us children. And Samyaza, who was their leader, he said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual curse, which is the word imprecation. Okay. They're literally going to do an imprecation, right? I was actually kind of pleased with how Grok created this little AI image of 200 angels on Mount Hermon. By the way, Mount Hermon is called the Mountain of Oath. That's its nickname historically. Still to this day, the Mountain of Oath. Just for all of you who think that Enoch is false history, Mount Hermon is still called the Mountain of Oath. But yeah, this interesting concept to see. Here we are, 200 angels. Samyaz is their leader, and he's like, hey, we're going to do this thing. We're going to take these women. We're going to have children with them, but we're going to bind ourselves together with an imprecation, a mutual agreement of oath. They swore all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecation upon it. And then they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. They called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual curses or mutual imprecation upon it. Okay. So 1 Enoch chapter 69 gets you into some interesting backstory, right? Why did the watchers, the rebellious angels who lusted after women, wanted to have children, why did they think they could even get away with this? Why did they think it? You guys, I don't have time to go through the entire first 15 chapters of Enoch. Okay, I'm going to give you a summary. We've got, it's again, go back to Science of Giants, installment 3 in our Investigating Babylon series. But the Nephilim are not called humans. And both in Jubilees and Enoch and Deuteronomy, I mean, the Nephilim are called the shades. They're called spiritual beings. The Nephilim that are produced in First Enoch as a result of this unholy union between male angels and female women, human women, was that their children were spiritual children. So 1 Corinthians 15 explains to us there's only 2 types of ontology in creation. There's things born of the dirt of the earth, and then there's spiritual beings. Okay, things born of spirit, which I would suggest within the creation, because yes, angels are made within the creation, move and live and interact within the creation. They're filled with the breath of life, just like we are. Even the rebellious ones, right? They weren't made rebellious. They just chose. Okay, so all things exist by the breath of God. It's Job 34. I think it's like 13 and 14. If he removes his spirit, everything would just fall and die. So all things is also consistent with Wisdom of Solomon chapter 1 verse 7. The Spirit of God fills all things. Okay. So the rebellious angels took wives from human women and had spiritual offspring. The more that you study the concept of there's only 2 ontologies, right? There's things made of the, of the dirt of the earth, or I should say of the earth realm, right? The birds in the air, the fish in the sea, the land animals. So there's things made from our realm, but then there's other things in the heavenly realms, because the Bible doesn't teach you live on a ball in space. It teaches you that Yahweh lives at the highest firmament above you, and there's multiple layers between you and him, and there's the abode of the angels in those multiple layers. It also teaches that there are animals in heaven. They can exist in heaven. So it's an interesting concept to see, okay, wait a minute. They didn't take a horse on the earth or in heaven. Remember, Christ comes back on a horse. He doesn't come back down through the sky like promised from the clouds of heaven, Matthew 24:29, Acts 1:7. He doesn't come down through the clouds of heaven and go steal a horse from someone's stable and then go back up and come back down on a horse. No, he's coming through the firmament that's open up. He's coming through it already on a horse. Just like we're going to read another passage here from 2 Kings. Angels have whole chariots. So there, again, we have to get rid of a Platonic mindset. Platonism teaches that there's nothing in heaven, that heaven is another realm and it's not anything like the earth. That's Platonism. And that is carried over into much of modern society today. The Bible doesn't teach that at all. The Bible teaches that sentient, human-looking angels who were men, physically, biologically male. They're angel kind, they're not mankind, but they were biologically male. It also explains in 1 Enoch 1-15 that Yahweh says to the rebellious angels, you were not appointed wives. I made you eternal, high, set apart, living in the high heaven. You were not appointed wives. Man on the earth was appointed wives to procreate. You were not. According to 1 Enoch and many other passages in Scripture, there are no angels that are women. All heavenly messengers are men. So this is why they wanted to take women from mankind. Now, the more you study this idea, a natural question may arise. How? How does a spiritual being take on a woman that's made of the dirt of the earth and produce an offspring through her? That's not, for one, how does that even work, right? It's like, what is it like when a horse breeds with is it a donkey? No, it's a horse breeds with a mule. Help me out in the live chat, guys. It's the horse breeds with a mule, he produces a donkey, right? The donkey. No. The mule is the hybrid between a horse breeding with a donkey, right? Help me on the live chat. I can't remember how that goes right now. Oh, by the way, just a coinkydink, the male angels who rebelled in 1 Enoch are literally spoken in metaphoric fashion as horses. And they produce this unholy offspring that's accursed. They're not made of the dirt of the earth. They're birthed through women. They're described as giants, but they're not even made of the dirt of the earth. They're not made from mankind. They come out spirit kind. This is why once they received judgment and lost their outer form, their spirits still are on the earth, and we call them unclean spirits. This is after the flood, okay? All this is okay, thank you. Donkey and a horse produces a mule. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so the point is, when you start to study that, a lot of people, again, there's so many aspects of this story that gets attacked throughout history. Sometimes they'll say, there's no way angels don't have real actual bodies. They're spiritual beings, which they think in their mind that means non-corporeal. They've been taught Platonic philosophy, and the whole world has been taught Platonic philosophy. And they think, anything that comes from a celestial realm that's a celestial entity, like a spiritual angel, doesn't actually have a real body of any kind. He just creates an apparition when he comes down to the earth and interacts. And if he's seen by man, there's just seeing an apparition. And that's why, the angels that showed up in Genesis 18, that's why Abraham said he just saw 3 men walking up, right? Because it's just an apparition, right? Well, that's not at all what the Bible describes as a spiritual ontology. Christ is resurrected and glorified and now is called a life-giving spirit. So he's no longer made of mankind in the sense of ontology, whereas he's not his flesh, because literally 1 Corinthians 15 describes spiritual flesh in contrast to earthy flesh, right? So when he was on the earth, he was a man who had earthy flesh. Now he died. His body was quickened while still, embalmed and wrapped those 3 days in the tomb, and then glorified. He takes off his grave clothes and folds them up and put them back on the bench, leaves the tomb. Now he just appears in a locked room in John 20. He disappears in front of the eyes of the disciples in Luke 24 after breaking bread with them. Like, now he moves like an angel because he has a different ontology. This is why we're promised. He himself in Luke 20, 35 and 36 promised us that we would have the be made like the angels, right? And he even adds the qualifier that you'll be neither given in marriage or taken in marriage. So this is very interesting that we're seeing a description of angels, that we're going to get this same type of incorruptible eternal body. Okay, a body that can actually live forever. This body made of dirt cannot live forever. It was never intended to. But if you're made of a spiritual body, yes, that body can live forever. And as Christ tells us, it's destroyed in the lake of fire, because that's actually why the lake of fire was made, was for the devil and his angels. It's the only thing that can destroy the type of body they actually have. All right. So this is why all this is very important. It's very important to understand this concept of how did these rebellious angels in 1 Enoch 6, who want to bind themselves in mutual imprecation, so they would do this thing and take these wives and have these children. For one, how did they think they could even properly procreate and have a children? Oh, that's because their bodies are compatible. They do have a real body. They are male biologically within their spirit kind. Yes, that's what the scriptures teach. And it was their test of obedience to remain without taking a wife. Some of them, 200 of them, I would say, depends on how you include Azazel in there, but at least 199 of them rebelled under the authority of Samyaza and took wives, had spiritual offspring, not biological male offspring, not offspring of mankind ontology. They had offspring of spirit kind ontology. That's why those particular Nephilim, by definition, the word Nephilim means the accursed ones or the fallen ones, the ones that are destined for destruction are already destroyed. There is no hope or redemption for them. They were birthed out of an imprecation, which what does an imprecation do? It appeals to a higher power, specifically, possibly a cosmic power. And the usage of the cosmic means like a celestial power, a cosmic power, a power greater, a power of the heavens. Okay? And here in 1 Enoch 69 is the conversation of how that happens. Okay. Verse 13 says, and this is the task of Casbiel, the chief of the oath, which he showed to the holy ones when he dwelt high above in glory. And its name is Beka. The angel requested Michael to show him the hidden name, that he might enunciate it in the oath. And I don't know if I said Beka right, or if that's translated into English and all that stuff, it's still being properly said. And again, I'm not trying to use it in some sort of oath. Again, don't do what Trev, kids. Read your Bible, trust in God. He'll give you eternal life. That's the short of it. These are men that are not trusting in the promises God had for them or the assignment of their eternal life that God gave to them. These are rebellious angels, okay? But what's interesting is this Casbiel character. It says, when he dwelt in the high above in glory, right? So it's assumed, as it explains other rebellious angels in this chapter that were a part of the crew that are in this great sin. It's assumed that he's included in them, okay? And that's how he, it's not just Samyaza. There's other aspects of these all extremely intelligent, extremely powerful angelic beings that are all colluding together to figure out how to get this done. This is like an incredible story. That's why we're trying to make Days of Noah. Okay, guys. The angel requested Michael to show him the hidden name, that he might enunciate it in the oath, so that those might quake before that name and the oath, who revealed all that was in secret to the children of men. Now, the who revealed is speaking of the rebellious angels who revealed the secrets of heaven to the children of men. That's explained, I think it's in chapter 10. It's either chapter 10 or 14 of First Enoch. But the idea is that he's going to get this, he's going to learn the name of this oath and how to enunciate it properly. Remember what the Vedics believed? That if you had Nada Brahma, that if you could say the proper thing with the right way, that it could change reality and existence through the frequencies that things are created by. So this angel's asking Michael, can you share with me this name and how to say it? Now, I would suggest that since Michael is literally like the right hand of God, he is, this is before Christ is exalted, right? So this is, because First Enoch already talks about Christ before he came to the earth and the position he's in at that point. But Michael's like, he's an archangel. He's one of the top ministers who talks to Yahweh, stands in the presence of Yahweh. And Casbiel is not. He's a lower rank angel. That's why he's going to Michael for knowledge even he doesn't have. And there's another place in First Enoch. I don't have time to just read you entire passages. I'm trying to give you shortcuts here as I talk about this. There's another place in First Enoch where Yahweh, as he's reprimanding the false angel or the rebellious angels, he says to them, I didn't show you everything. I didn't show you all the secrets of heaven. You guys. But this particular secret, this guy, as Cosbiel, is going to Michael to ask him, hey, can I get the no? Can I get down on this? Can I get the no on this? How do I say this name? What is this name? And it's given to him. Now, Michael didn't get in trouble at any point in the first Enoch or any point in any other book. So I'm guessing Yahweh allowed him to give it to him. Because again, Yahweh knows he knows what these people are trying to do. It's not like these rebellious angels are getting away with this. Okay. So it says that this is the power of this oath, for it is powerful and strong. And he placed this oath, which is called Akeh, in the hand of Michael. And these are the secrets of this oath. And now, as you can see there in the text, there's a ... That's because there's kind of a break in this fragmented of the scroll. Okay. So we don't know what the rest of that sentence was, but it goes on to say, and they are strong through this oath. And the heaven was suspended before the world was created and forever. And through it, the oath, the earth was founded upon the water, and from the secret recesses of the mountains come beautiful waters, from the creation of the world and unto eternity. And through that oath, the sea was created as its foundation. He set for it the sand against the time of its anger, and it dare not pass beyond it from the creation of the world until eternity. And through that oath are the depths made fast and abide and stir not from their place from eternity to eternity. So this is like the foundations of the heaven and the earth. Literally, when Yahweh spoke these things into being, this is claiming this was a part of that binding language and power that went into putting these things in place, creating the heaven and the earth. And these rebellious angels are asking for that. They're asking how to say stuff like they're asking how to speak like that and have power like that in the same way. And it's given unto them. So what do they do with it? They do what God did not intend. And that that's what it says in chapter 7. In chapter 7, in chapter 7 though, it goes on to say, they took wives and taught enchantments and the cutting of roots, and they bore giants. And those giants are described as spiritual beings, not of the ontology of mankind. Again, another caveat, go watch The Science of Giants. I explained this in the other video. I don't have time to get into it right now, but just a short caveat. There's a difference in the ontology of the giants before the flood versus after the flood. I explained that with science, all the science before and after the flood. I explained that in the video I keep referencing. Okay, so you guys go check that out after this if you're interested in deeper aspect on, so you're not confused. Okay, because yes, we do see the word giant and we do see tall people showing up after the flood, but they're not of a spiritual ontology. They're just big men that have been altered. Okay, so look right here though. The core foundations of the heaven and earth are being used and put into place so that they don't move with this oath. And this is why it's a powerful thing to use when you're speaking things into creation. These rebellious angels want to use this power. And what do you see them do? They use enchantments, which is an imprecation. They use enchantments to make giants. In addition to the root cutting, I explained the root cutting in another video. But the enchantment part is a part of the witchcraft they're doing. What does witchcraft do? It manipulates God's good creation and what he made and to be intended for a different purpose, for a selfish purpose. And their selfish purpose is they're going to create offspring that can also live forever. This is why we're still dealing with unclean spirits today, and why First Enoch is the only book in ancient Israelite literature that promises they will be destroyed in the lake of fire at Christ's second coming. It goes on to say in 23:25, through that oath, the sun and moon complete their course and deviate not from their ordinance from eternity to eternity. That's a pretty powerful oath. What's an oath? It's something you speak. What did God say? He spoke. He said, let there be light. Let there be luminaries. Genesis 1:14-17. Let there be a sun, moon, and star, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. And he made the stars also, verse 17. The luminaries. He spoke these things. Put them in their positions, spoke them into their courses that they follow in the firmament above, that they will never deviate. They're always, this is Jeremiah 33, the sun and moon will last forever. They're going to be there forever, just as the heavens will last forever. It's very interesting. It says he calls them by their names and they answer him from eternity to. Now, this is speaking about Yahweh, specifically using this oath to create the sun, moon, and stars. He says he calls them by their names, and they answer him from eternity to eternity. And in like manner, the spirits of the water and of the winds and all the zephyrs and their paths from all the quarters of the winds. And there are preserved the voices of the thunder and the light of the lightnings. And there are preserved the chambers of the hail and the chambers of the hoarfrost and the chambers of the mist, the chambers of the rain and the dew. And all these believe and give thanks before the Lord of spirits and glorify him with all their power. And their food is in every act of thanksgiving. They thank and glorify and extol the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. And this oath is mighty over them, and through it they are preserved, and their paths are preserved, and their course is not destroyed. He just described pretty much all of creation. The heavens over the earth, the foundations of the earth, the depths of the seas, the foundations of the seas, the sun, moon, and stars, the winds, the waters, the chambers of weather, hoarfrost, that's snow, mist, rain, and dew. That's different seasonal weathers, also explained in 1 Enoch 72 through like 82. Okay? All component pieces of the creation. This oath is mighty over those component pieces of creation, and through it they're preserved, meaning they're set in place. You know, was it Psalm 102? The earth is established never to be moved. Okay? This is saying the same thing with more descriptive detail, and attributing that this oath is what holds all of creation in place. You know, the spoken words that go into keeping everything in place, almost like it's the frequency of existence. 2 Kings 6, 8 through 11. Okay, what have we been talking about? We've been talking about how we've been discussing the idea that there's a phenomenon coming on that people are saying, oh, if I alter my brain just a bit, I can look through a laser and I can see some sort of languages and numbers, letters. I can see something. It looks like code, right? Don't get tripped out on the word code, right? I mean, if you want to call it code, if you're big into computer programming, that's fine. But the point is they're seeing something in through the light, right? They're seeing something through the light, and they keep claiming they're seeing into something on the other side of the light beam. But it's because if you don't know what a laser is, a laser is just focused light. So if you disperse the laser, you can disperse it so much so that you really can't see it anymore, because it just blends back into the light spectrum. But the idea is that it's been focused. The light spectrum has been focused for the laser, and they're looking through that focused area of light, and what they see on the other side is unique, is not normal. So their brain has already been affected. Their eyes, so to speak, have already been affected in what they're perceiving. And then they specifically are looking through condensed or concentrated light in order for them to now see something that looks like background information into structures, into physical substance. Okay? Then we also saw the angels wanted the power to do something that was not created, and to create their own creation of spiritual beings. And they did so by gaining access to the same spoken power that Yahweh used, and actually has a name for it, and holds the sun, moon, stars, the heavens, and the earth, and everything in place. And they said, oh, we know that that's a part of this. Like, this is what, okay, so we need access to that. And what do they do with it? They create their own offspring, which is called an enchantment. They're manipulating reality with their will, their passion, their spoken word. This is witchcraft. This is what they were doing. Okay? So we're not being, I'm trying to walk the line between explaining to you the physics, the historical nature of it, but then let's just call it what it is. This is witchcraft. Don't do this at home, kids. You know, just hopefully we're all mature here. We understand this is bad. This is not an endorsement of it. I'm just explaining to you what I understand this to be, already explained to us through Scripture. And we have examples of when people's minds are affected, they see different things. Okay? And they see spiritual things. What John 4:24, God is spirit. And when he breathes, he speaks, that's his spirit that goes out into creation. 2 Kings 6:8-11. Now the king of Aram was at war against Israel, and after consulting with his servants, he said, my camp will be in such and such place. Then the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, be careful not to pass by this place, for the Arameans are going down there. So the king of Israel sent word to the place the man of God had pointed out. And time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he was on his guard in such places. So Elisha, in this instance, is kind of like being he's kind of like going out there and getting reconnaissance, right? King, don't travel over this way. The Aramean encampment, there's a battle group of Arameans over there. Don't go this way, go a different way, okay? For this reason, the king of Aram became enraged and called his servants to demand of them, tell me, which one of us is on the side of the king of Israel? So he thinks there's a mole, right? Because every time he's going to a different place to camp out to attack by surprise the king of Israel goes a different route. So he's like, somebody's snitching. So we got a mole. Somebody's snitching here, right? No, it's through the Spirit of God. Elijah is directing the king for safety. 2 Kings 6:12-15. But one of his servants replied, no one, my lord, the king, for Elisha, the prophet in Israel, tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom. So the king said, go and see where he is, that I may send men to capture him. So on receiving the report, Elisha is in Dothan. The king of Aram sent horses, chariots, and a great army. They went there by night and surrounded the city. And when the servant of the man of God got up and went out early in the morning, behold, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. So he asked Elisha, oh, my master, what are we to do? Don't be afraid, Elisha answered, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Then Elisha prayed, O Lord, please open his eyes that he may see. And Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man and said, and he saw, the eyes of the young man, and he saw that the hills were full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. Guys, it doesn't say it in the language. Do we believe that there's angels with these horses and chariots? You see a bunch of horses and chariots full of fire all around you. Do you think that that's going to help you in a battle? No. Clearly, this is an allusion to there's angels accompanying these horses and chariots, just like there's men dressed in battle armor for war accompanying the horses and chariots that are part of the Aramean army. Okay? So he's seeing the hosts of heaven. And what do they have? They have horses with them from heaven. Okay, just so we understand. We don't believe in Gnosticism here. We don't believe in Platonism here. Heaven's a real place. Bible describes heaven as a real place. There's trees, land, water, horses, animals. Food is grown there. Food is ate there. It's a real place. There's clouds described in Job. There's a rainbow in Revelation 4 over the throne of Yahweh. You guys understand that requires water and atmosphere and light. Okay? It's a real place. Okay. So here's what Elisha does. He opens the eyes of his young servant to see the angels dressed for war already there. Okay? Elisha can already see this. Now he's rolling in the Spirit of God with the gift of the Spirit. He has discerning of spirits gift. He can already see this. Angels are called ministering spirits. They're called spirits of flame and wind and flame. I think it's in Psalm 104. You can see the spirits, right? That's why the prophets used to be called seers. They see visions of heaven. They see angels. There was it's like a synonymous name for prophet is to be called a seer. That's on the nose. They can see things you can't. Okay. So the Lord opened the eyes of the young man. He saw that the hills were full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And as the Arameans came down against him, Elisha prayed to Yahweh, please strike these people with blindness. So he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. All right. So this is fascinating. Fascinating stuff. Okay. Now, what kind of blindness are we talking about? Like, are they literally blind? Is this like Sodom and Gomorrah, where the two angels, like the men of the city, were pressing in on the door, Lot's door, to try to get in there and do some bad things to those angels, and the angels struck the men with blindness? This is a little bit different. It explains the blindness. 2 Kings 6:19-21. Elisha told them, all the the Aramean army that he just struck with blindness, he then says to them, "This is not the way. This is not the city. Follow me, and I will take you to the man that you're seeking." And he led them to Samaria. Samaria was the capital city of Israel at that time, where the king was staying, the king of Israel, 2 houses, right? The king of Israel was staying in the capital city of Samaria. And this is 12 miles south of where Dothan is, right? So Elisha lived in a town called Dothan. 12 miles south is Samaria. He blinds an entire army of Arameans and then says, "Follow me." Takes them on a journey of 12 miles to another city. So these men are not physically blinded, like they can see, but the blindness is referring to something else. And I'll show you in just a minute why that was commonly believed in the ancient world. Okay. So the Lord opened their eyes. All right, I'm sorry, let me go here. And he led them to Samaria. And when they entered Samaria, Elisha said, "Yahweh, open the eyes of these men that they may see." Then Yahweh opened their eyes, and they looked around and discovered that they were in Samaria, 12 miles south of Dothan. And when the king of Israel saw them, and he asked Elisha, "My father, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them?" Because remember, these people have been hunting down the king of Israel at this time. And it's interesting that the king of Israel calls Elisha my father, right? He goes on to say, "Do not kill them," he replied. "Would you kill those you've captured with your own sword or bow? Set food and water before them that they may eat and drink and then return to their master." So the king prepared a great feast for them. And after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master, and the Aramean raiders did not come into the land of Israel again. So let's walk through the scenarios here, okay? For everyone out there, before I get to the next slide, before I explain. Let's walk through the scenarios. If you think that they were physically blinded and couldn't see anything at all, they were just walked 12 miles with their horses and chariots to another town, completely blind, and no one's trying to run away. No one's trying to move. No one's trying to wildly swing at anybody. No one's trying to grope their way to the sound of Elisha's voice and kill him. They're just docile. "Oh, we're blind. I guess I'll just let you take me wherever you want me to go." No, this is a different type of blindness. So then they have their minds brought back to them. They have their eyes, quote unquote, open. This is a very common language in the scriptures for having your mind open, your eyes open. And then they realize they're in a different city. But what do? They're not trying to kill the king. Isn't that what they were trying to do initially? The whole point of what they've been doing for the previous time period was trying to encamp at a certain spot, waiting for the king of Israel to come through, and then they were going to attack him. Now they're staring at the king of Israel in the face, and they don't do anything. And what does Elisha say? These men are captive. They're captured. They haven't, you and whose army? The Aramean army. They have their own army. The army is there. Elisha is pointing at a foreign army and saying, "I've captured them, and now you've captured them. They're here for you, but they're not going to fight you because they're captured. Make them some food. They're hungry, and then send them back to their masters." Like, this is a huge flex, by the way, guys, if you don't understand what's happening here. This is like a massive flex. You didn't have to fight anything. He didn't have to sling a stone or a sword, nothing. Yahweh, through the power of God, blinded the eyes of these Arameans. They were put in a state of docility to where they followed 12 miles on a journey to the person they were trying to kill originally, and then had their minds and their eyes opened again, but they're still not trying to kill the king of Israel. Instead, they sit down and peaceably eat a meal and return home. I hope you guys are following. Why are they doing this? I'm not saying Elijah's doing witchcraft. Clearly, no. He's using the power of God, right? But I'm talking about what the mind and the eyes are spoken of in scripture whenever they're augmented and it's not normal. Okay? These men are not in their right minds. These men have been taken 12 miles to a different city with their eyes blinded, and then their eyes are opened, but they're still not showing the aggression that they had when they were blinded. They've been changed supernaturally. They've been, calm down supernaturally. So this is why it's important to understand this, okay? The blindness that's being referenced here is not talking about whether they can physically see or not. And if you go into the Peshitta, which is the Aramaic translation of the Old Testament, it actually doesn't use the word blindness anyway. It actually uses the word hallucination, which is fascinating to me. They came down to them, and Elisha prayed to Yahweh, Jehovah, and said, strike this people with hallucinations. And he struck them with hallucinations according to the word of Elisha. And they did whatever he wanted. And they stopped trying to kill everybody. And they sat down with the king whom they were trying to hunt down previously and just had a peaceful meal. What did the psalmist say in Psalm 23? You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Walking in safety, walking in green pastures. That we're watching the embodiment of Psalm 23 in this example with Elisha here through the power of Yahweh. And what does he do? He doesn't physically blind these men because they can still travel 12 miles and they can still eat food, but their minds are changed to the point where it has affected them. It has changed their will and their volition. Wisdom of Solomon 17, 2-6, we see the same concept happen in one of the plagues of Egypt as described in the Wisdom of Solomon. It says, for when the unrighteous man thought to oppress the holy nation, they being shut up in their houses, the prisoners of darkness, and fettered with the bonds of a long night, this is when the plague of darkness happened, lay there exiled from the eternal providence. For while they supposed to lie hid in their secret sins, they were scattered under a dark veil of forgetfulness, being horribly astonished and troubled with strange apparitions. For neither might the corner that held them keep them from fear, but noises as of waters falling down surrounded about them, and sad visions appeared unto them with heavy countenances. No power of the fire might give them light, neither could the bright flames of the stars endure to lighten that horrible night. Only there appeared unto them a fire kindled of itself, very dreadful. For being much terrified, they thought the things which they saw to be worse than the sight they saw not. So they could still see, they're veiled in darkness, and their minds are scattered under a dark veil of forgetfulness. And they're seeing crazy apparitions. He goes on to say, as for the illusions of art magic, they were put down, and their vaunting in wisdom was reproved with disgrace. Remember, the magicians of Egypt couldn't do anything against the plague of darkness. For they that promised to drive away terrors and troubles from a sick soul were sick themselves of fear, worthy to be laughed at. Right? So the wise men of Egypt, the magi of Egypt, the art practitioners, the sorcerers, the Janus and Jambres of Egypt, were like, oh yeah, you're afflicted of mind, we'll help you. No, they were all afflicted of mind. All of them. For though no terrible thing did fear them, yet being scared with beasts that passed by and hissing of serpents, they died for fear, denying that they saw the air which could of no side be avoided. So they died for fear, denying that they saw the air which could of no side be avoided. For wickedness, condemned by her own witness, is very timorous, and being pressed with conscience, always forecasts grievous things. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of the succors which reasons offer, and the expectations from within being less, counts the ignorance more than the cause which brings the torment. But they, sleeping the same sleep that night, which was indeed intolerable, which came upon them out of the bottoms of inevitable hell, were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions, and partly fainted, their heart failing them, for a sudden fear, and not looked for, came upon them. So then, whosoever there fell down was straitly kept, shut up in a prison without iron bars. For whether he were a husbandman or shepherd or a laborer in the field, he was overtaken, and endured that necessity, which could not be avoided, for they were all bound with one chain of darkness. Whether it were a whistling wind or a melodious noise of birds among the spreading branches, or a pleasing fall of water running violently, or a terrible sound of stones casting down, or a running that could not be seen of skipping beasts, they heard footsteps. They heard sounds of water falling, rocks falling, footsteps, apparitions of beasts and other things flying by that scared them to death. The plague of darkness wasn't just that there was no light in the land, and a darkness that could be felt, like Exodus chapter 9 that talks about this, or chapter 10. This Wisdom of Solomon gives a much greater description, that these folks were having Many people would call this hallucinations. Their mind wasn't right. They couldn't move. They couldn't leave the darkness. Remember, the darkness was over a specific geographical area. The children of Goshen, the children of Israel in the land of Goshen had light. Everything was working fine in their life. The moon shining down, that they could light a fire in their domicile. Like there was no problems over there. It was specifically the plague of darkness that fell on the Egyptians. And within that darkness, they're seeing all types of hallucinations. Their minds are scattered with a strange forgetfulness. They're hearing footsteps. It's an ongoing torment that they're feeling. He goes on to say, or a rebounding echo from the hollow mountains. These things made them to swoon for fear. For the whole world shined with clear light, and none were hindered in their labor. Over them only was spread a heavy night, and an image of that darkness which should afterward receive them. But yet were they unto themselves more grievous than the darkness. So, again, a plague of darkness, right, that we see that Yahweh did through Moses, just like Elisha, a prophet of God, through the power of God, struck the minds and blinded the eyes of the Aramean army and led them like sheep 12 miles south to another town, and then fed them and sent them home without nigh a sword being drawn. And the same concept of controlling the minds. These people couldn't leave the dark area. They were afraid to move, and their minds were hallucinating. This is what can happen, whatever this is in the mind. And scientists try to study it. It's hard for them to even explain the idea of how our mind interacts with the spiritual realm. Because remember, your mind is animated with the breath of life that's inside you. Yahweh's spoken breath of life. Okay, so then Exodus chapter 7, 8 through 13, we're seeing another application of witchcraft and sorcery that changes reality. This is one that atheists mock. Okay, I don't know. Many people may have known this, may have heard these arguments before, and they'll say, oh, you believe in a book that says that wooden staffs can be turned into a living snake. Sounds like you're augmenting reality. But not just the witchcraft of Jonas and Jamri did it. Moses did it too, through the power of God. And I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to explain this. Exodus 7, 8 through 13, Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh tells you perform a miracle, you're to say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh. It'll become a serpent. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as Yahweh commanded. Aaron threw his staff down before Yahweh and his officials, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh called the wise men and the sorcerers and magicians of Egypt, and they also did the same things by their magical arts. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a serpent. But Aaron's staff swallowed up the other staffs. Still, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to them, just as Yahweh had said. So, in Pharaoh's mind, it's a battle of magicians, right? I guess what I want to put forward here, okay, is many of us think that a sorcerer or a magician is someone that is somehow doing like some shenanigans. They think, oh, there must be some trick to it, you know. Maybe he had like maybe they did this trick before, and they brought out maybe they brought out a specially made papyrus staff that a snake was already inside of it, stretched out. And then when they throw it on the ground, they snap the papyrus release on it, throwing it on the ground quickly, and the snake falls onto the ground, and they can't tell that it broke out the papyrus covering than it was. Like I'm just talking, the modern day magicians, they do whole exposés on how they did this trick. Okay. That's not what this is happening here. These people remember, the magicians of Egypt were also able to turn water into blood. Convincingly enough to where Pharaoh was like, yeah, okay, so what? We can do that too. That's real magic. Okay. And this is where in modernity, the average person doesn't think magic is real. They think it's all just some sort of shenanigans, some sort of trick. All right. Magic is actually real. Okay. And what they're doing with magic, as I've just tried to explain to you with the rebellious angels in the days of Enoch, with the definition of what an imprecation or an enchantment is that they are, through their ritual structured process, they're trying to apply the same augmentation of reality and power over the creation that Yahweh does in a good way. Okay? Yahweh can change anything you want in the creation, but he has already put things in motion to work as it's intended, right? But obviously Yahweh can turn a staff into a snake if he wanted. Jesus said he could turn these stones into people that would praise him. Think about that for a minute. Because remember, we're dealing with all the same material. Staff made of wood grows from wood out of the ground, formed by the nutrients in the soil, the water, all the nitrates, the minerals in the soil. Same thing you're made of. Same thing a snake is made of, right? So if you have the power to manipulate those molecules or those elements of the creation, you find yourself in the world of sorcery, enchantments, imprecations. Okay? So, and we even have an explanation, by the way, in Jubilees 48, 7 through 10, where it says, and everything took place, this is the angel speaking to Moses about this moment with a showdown with the Egyptian magicians. The angel says to Moses, everything took place according to your words. 10 great and terrible plagues came on the land of Egypt, though you might execute vengeance on it, so that you might execute vengeance on it for Israel. And the Lord did everything for Israel's sake, and according to his covenant, which he had ordained with Abraham, that he would take vengeance on them as he had brought them by force into bondage. And Prince Mastema, that's Satan, stood up against you and sought to cast you into the hand of Pharaoh. And he helped the Egyptian sorcerers, and they stood up and wrought before you the evils. Indeed, we permitted them to work, but the remedies we did not allow to be wrought by their hands. So this is, by the way, it's Michael having a conversation with Moses and explaining to him on the 40 days he's up there on Mount Sinai. That's the context of the book of Jubilees. And he's explaining to Moses about an earlier point in his life with this showdown with the Egyptian magicians, saying, by the way, we were there, Satan was there, we were helping you, and we were also showing power over the Egyptian magicians because they did one thing which we allowed them to work. We did another thing through you. We're going to do all these plagues through you too, but we didn't allow them to go too far. We stopped them before they could go too far, right? So that they could not show power over you. Okay. So basically Moses is being told, possibly for the first time in this moment, that he had faith in Exodus chapter 7, that he, like, what was he told? Take this staff, and with this staff you can show the elders of Israel that you are a prophet, that you'll do wonders, and then you can also stand up to Pharaoh as well. So he's using the staff in faith in Exodus 7, but later on Mount Sinai, the angels explained to him, oh, by the way, Moses, we were there, we had your back. And what were they doing? They were allowing reality to be manipulated by the evil people, because this is all under God's sovereign decision. Just like Michael in 1 Enoch 69, Gazbiel comes to him asking how to pronounce and enunciate this oath. And Michael allows it. He's not making decisions on his own, I promise you. He's doing the will of the Father. And he's also here at this moment allowing these human magicians to work their little magic as well. And then, by the way, we're gonna show you that we're more powerful. Our snake's gonna eat the both of yours, and you're not gonna be able to stop any of these plagues we're gonna do to you, because this is the determination of the Father to judge you for your hard heart. So there is an interesting aspect here of a manipulation of reality that is directly attributed to the evil people, to the magicians of Egypt. It's attributed as witchcraft and sorcery. But when the good angel does it, it's not witchcraft and sorcery. Because Yahweh, according to his will, can use his creation. What do we see in Wisdom of Psalm 16:24, right? The creation relaxes on behalf of those who trust in God. Moses trusted in God. The ordered creation, which typically a staff doesn't turn into a snake, it relaxes on behalf of God. You're told to stay of a sober mind, okay? But if you're an evil army and you're trying to attack a prophet of God and his anointed king, then the supernatural protection of God comes in, and he can either just destroy you with fire from heaven like Sodom and Gomorrah. He could cause you to go into a stupor by breaking a bunch of pots and have you all attack yourselves and kill yourselves. Or he could show you mercy and have his prophet, the man of God Elisha, cause you guys to all go blinded in your minds and not realize what's happening, be led to an incredible dinner with your enemy, and then be sent back home in peace. That's like, what an incredible loving God. So the point of what I'm saying in here is when we're talking about this type of power, I can't stress this enough. Sorcery, witchcraft is the manipulation against God's will. But what they're doing is possible. And this is, again, don't do witchcraft, kids. Don't do witchcraft. Anyone listening to the sound of my voice, follow Yahweh, trust him. If there's an emergency situation, he will work miracles through you, even if it means augmenting the creation in what ways. Christ walked on water. Peter walked on water. Christ resurrected a dude out of a coffin in his funeral procession in Luke chapter 7, right? By the way, did you know in the ancient world, Anubis of ancient Egypt was their head magician, and he was famous for resurrecting people also? The point is, it can happen, but is it happening within God's will? Then it's an okay thing. Is it happening outside of God's will? Now you're into the land of enchantment, sorcery, manipulations, imprecations, and curses. Now you're doing black magic. You're doing wickedness. It's not happening outside of God. It's what is God's will. It is alignment with protecting his good intent, his design, his covenant, righteousness. But if you're a magician who's trying to show the power of the king you serve, and that king you serve is unrighteously oppressing you, well, then you're working for the bad guy. You're working in unrighteousness, and you're a sorcerer for Satan, and not for you're not doing anything good. You're not a prophet of God that may have to, like Elisha also did with the woman, where she had just a little bit of meal, and he kind of like multiplied the grain that she had so she could make a bunch of food for a longer period of time and wouldn't starve. Right? That's the creation relaxing on behalf, through God's power, on behalf of those who trust in God in a good way. That's not witchcraft. That's not sorcery. Just like Jesus multiplying fish and bread, that's not sorcery and witchcraft. So sorcery and witchcraft is taking God's creation and manipulating it for personal gain or for evil purposes. But the point is, it's still possible. And that's why they do it. That's why they do it. That's why God has to tell you, don't do necromancy, because it's possible. But don't do it. Psalm 33, 6-9. By the word of Yahweh, the heavens were made, and all the stars by the breath of his mouth. He piles up the waters of the sea. He puts the depths in the storehouses. Let all the earth fear Yahweh. Let all the people of the world revere him. For he spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood firm. He spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood firm. The stars by the breath of his mouth. The heavens were made, the stars by the breath of his mouth. He spoke, and these things came into being. What does Psalm 19 say about the stars, that they pour forth speech day and night? So I just want to encourage you guys that people are unanimously declaring that when they augment their brain just a little bit with natural substances, that they're able to see things that the eye doesn't normally see until that state wears off. And it's very possible, just as we have reports from other people throughout history that have said the same type of stuff, it's very possible they are seeing something specific, that this specific hallucinogen, the specific DMT thing, is actually hitting a certain part of your brain that other hallucinogens didn't, in a much less violent way, to where you're still conscious and seeing. And then now add that with the correlation of them looking through condensed light, which is what everything's made out of, and it might possibly be magnifying the background fabric of God's spoken word, which became the atmosphere, the heavens above, the waters, and everything has a purpose and stays in that purpose according to God's power. He spoke these things through the oath. This is why it even says it's in 1 Enoch 41, I believe, or chapter 40, where it talks about the sun and moon keep mutual oath with each other so that they stay in the circuits they were designed to go in their circumference in the heaven, so that we have, the moon moving at the speed it does, the sun moving at the speed it does. And it speaks about them being in an oath together, like they're in a covenant together, right? But they were placed there by the word of Yahweh through his promise, his oath to them, that this will be established forever. This same language is also used when it speaks about Christ being put into his Melchizedek priesthood, that he's placed there not through genealogy, but through an oath. And that's why it says you'll be a high priest forever. It'll never be retracted, rescinded. It's established. Yahweh has done this. He'll be King of Kings, Lords of Lords, over the priesthoods of angels and men forever. So it's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Goes on in 2 Peter 3:5, but they deliberately overlooked the fact long ago by God's word the heavens existed and the earth was formed out of water and by water. By God's word, the heavens existed and the earth was formed out of water and by water. Let the waters recede, Genesis 1, 9 through 13. Let the waters recede, and then the dry land appeared. Let the vegetation grow up on the earth. And that was even before the sun, moon, and stars were put in the sky for light. All this is happening through a spoken word. Look, if people see letters that resemble some form of Hebrew or Aramaic and other languages, if they see that in the creation because they're looking through condensed light, it doesn't surprise me, honestly. Have we forgotten that by God's word, the heavens existed and the earth was formed by water and out of water? Now, here's where it gets a little interesting, and there's going to be some of you that are going to go nuts over this, but nuts in a bad way, but may not, may be well-tempered in this, okay? So it's interesting that, there's a highly debated passage in Scripture in John chapter 1. Trinitarians love to bring this up because they want to talk about how it shows Christ pre-incarnate. And look, I think the language of John chapter 1 is very interesting because it can be used for multiple things. It can speak in multiple ways. But what's fascinating, and what is always, I know in verse 14 it says the word became flesh and dwelt among us. And so some people have always interpreted, that means that the word that's being mentioned in verse 1 through 3 is the Son. And then they'll say, okay, well, some people say, well, no, it's just the wisdom of God. That's like a notional preexistence of the Son, but not really the Son. So there's a debate between Unitarians and Trinitarians. And then others will say, well, actually the word is just the message, right? So they also look to the Apostle John's letter in 1 John chapter 1, where he talks about the word that we've spoken to you from the beginning. And so they think he's also speaking in that same vein here. By the way, this translator has decided to capitalize the W in the word. They're not all capitalized. I'm going to show you in a minute. They're not all capitalized. So some people think it's just the message of God, which is the gospel, which is the word, right? Which is the word of God that carries power with it, that it carries finality, purpose, distinction. Some people think it's just that. Trinitarians think it's the pre-incarnate Christ. Unitarians think it's the wisdom of God spoken in a metaphoric fashion with the wisdom Christology. Either way, it's fine. It could be, technically, it could be all those things, because all those things fit within certain contexts. But interesting, if you go back to the 1500s, before the KJV came out, many of the translators translated what is typically him, a pronoun him, where they take the Greek word, I think it's auto, which could be translated as a he, she, or it. And modern translators, because most, 99 out of 100, 999 out of 1,000 are Trinitarian. And so they'll say, oh, that's a him there. They make a decision. They can choose the pronouns he, she, or it from the Greek word, and they make a decision to choose the he. To where they'll say, he was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him it was made, nothing was made. But yet in the 16th century, in the Geneva Bible, 1587, they actually translated it with the word it. And they'll say, in the beginning was that word, and that word was with God, and that word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by it, and without it was nothing made that was made. In it was life, and that life was the light of men, and that light shined in the darkness comprehended it not. Okay. It's not the only example. You have the Bishop's Bible in 1568. It says the same concept. In the beginning was the Word, lowercase w. And the Word was with God, and that Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by it, and without it was made nothing that was made. And it was life. Okay. Go into the Tyndale Bible, 1526. In the beginning was the Word, lowercase word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by it. And without it was made nothing that was made. And it was the light of life. Genesis 2:7. Basics, right? Yahweh Elohim formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed the breath of life in his nostrils, and the man became a living being. What comes out of a person, by the way, the Father has a real body and he has real breath. What comes out of your breath? Sound, moisture, cymatics already. Sound and moisture. And that went into Adam and he became a living soul. And it stayed in Adam. What do we see here? Job 32:8. But there is a spirit in a man, and it's the breath of the Almighty. And that gives him understanding. So wait a minute. How does God's Spirit give us understanding? How does God's Spirit give us understanding? Isn't understanding communicating intellectual ideas? The breath that was put into mankind keeps you alive, still in you, still called the breath of the Almighty, and it's even said to give you understanding. To have understanding means you have an idea, you're formulating cognitive ability of recognizing ideas, concepts, putting them together in a coherent way that makes sense to the reality that you live in. You gain understanding through the breath of the Almighty. It's already in you, and it works with you doing what? Proverbs 25:2 is the glory of God to seal matter, but it's the honor of kings to search it out. That if you would ask, seek, and knock, it'll be revealed unto you. You receive it, it'll be given unto you. If you hide his word in your heart, you will be blessed. Psalm 119. So if you take the words, put them in your heart and mind, how? Through your eyes, through your ears, even some, but usually through your eyes. It's going to work with the Spirit of God that's already in you to give you understanding, because there's simpatico that came from him. Mark 8:22-26. When they arrived at Bethsaida, some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. Then he spit on the man's eyes and placed his hands on him. And he said, "Can you see anything?" He asked. The man looked up and said, "I see the people, but they look like trees walking around." And once again, Jesus placed his hands on the man's eyes, and when he opened them, once again, Jesus placed his hands on the man's eyes, and when he opened them, his sight was restored, and he couldn't see everything, and he could see everything clearly. Jesus sent him home and said, "Do not go back into the village and don't tell anyone." I want to ask a question to the live chat. Do you guys think that Jesus couldn't heal this man on the first try? Is that synonymous with how Jesus was just healing incredibly large crowds of people before this? All who came to him were healed. Anyone who touched him was healed. Let me know what you think in the live chat. Jesus had to take 2 goes at healing this man. Was that intentional, or was that because he just, didn't have enough faith the first time and had to do it a second time? He had to practice, right? He just took a practice swing the first time, and then now he's warmed up and he's ready to really hit. Most people think it's intentional. Now, some people have interpreted this to mean that it's intentional because and then you get like 100 different interpretations. Okay. Some people will say it's intentional because he was trying to, because the word tree is translated, it's the word dendra in the Greek, and it translates to oak. And then it says, oh, I see men as oaks walking around. And it's supposed to be some sort of unspoken lesson to the blind man that, hey, you should become an oak of righteousness from the Old Testament. So like people will definitely apply their own interpretation to this. Other people will say, oh, by the way, you're seeing men as trees, appealing to the height of the trees walking around. He didn't say shrubs or bushes. The word dendra in the Greek is the only word for tree, right? So he didn't say shrubs or bushes, or like, he says, I see people walking as trees. Other people think maybe he didn't see people, but he was seeing unclean spirits, right? The spirit of the giants walking around, unclean spirits moving around. Okay. That's possible. It's possible. I mean, that is by definition, the giants were unclean spirits. They're still left on the earth without bodies, and they're called the shades in Deuteronomy 27. And they can be seen when what happens? When the mind and the perception of the eye is affected. So that's a possible and plausible interpretation as well. So regardless of the interpretation, what if it's just to show us, but what if they say there is a proper interpretation that God knows, but what about along the way, what we do witness, regardless of the interpretation of why he saw men in an unclear way looking like trees? Look, maybe there were some big people back then, but I hope I hope someone doesn't look at me and squint and say, oh, is that a tree or is that a man? Like, bro, I mean, I need to get back on the treadmill if someone mistakes me for a tree. So maybe it's just about him still having some fuzzy vision and Christ just had to do it a second time. Maybe. Or is it showing you that there are stages to your eye coming into clarity with your mind and how you perceive life and reality? I don't think that this was an accident. I don't think that Christ didn't have enough faith or power and he had to take a second go at healing him. Right? He had to get more spit. Oh, okay, man, I just left you fuzzy. I need to clear off you. Let's clear off those irises. Is it possible it's just another indication that specifically when working with the eyes, that they're a window to the soul, that they're a window to the mind? Remember how many other people he healed that none of this never happened? This is the only time this happened. And by the way, I don't know if it's interesting to me that the people in Bethsaida, they came out and they begged, they brought a blind man to Jesus and they said, would you please heal him? And it says, Jesus took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. Then he healed him. And then he said, don't go back in the village. Don't tell anybody about this. It's interesting. Makes you wonder if like what's going on in that village. I think we see the context of what's going on in the village a little further down in Mark chapter 8 when the Pharisees start interrogating this man and they start getting really snippy with this dude. And this guy starts defending Jesus and was like, surely this man is from God. I mean, he healed me. But it's just interesting because I don't believe that Christ just couldn't heal him the first time and had to try a second time. I think that he was definitely intentionally showing there's the stages of development, and or when it comes to your sight and perception and how it translates into the brain, there's stages of awareness and perception. And that's what we just saw with Elisha in 2 Kings 6. He took men on a 12-mile journey, docile, men that wanted to kill him. Their awareness was different. They sat with the king that they were hunting to kill and just ate a peaceful meal and went back home. Their awareness was different. Their eyes were blinded and then opened, and their awareness was changed. It's very, very unique concept. And in the same way, we have unbelievers, just like, I'm not going to say that the servant of Elisha was an unbeliever, but he ain't seeing angels. Elisha's seeing the angels. And he had to open the mind and the eyes of that little boy so he could see the angels all around. And then he did. Did he stay like that for the rest of his life, or did it go back? When did that wear off for that young servant? It doesn't tell us. Luke 24, 27 through 31, and beginning with Moses and all the prophets, that's Christ, he explained to them what was written in all the scriptures about himself. As they approached the village where they were headed, he seemed to be going farther, but they pleaded with him, "Stay with us, for it's nearly evening, the day's almost over." So he went in to stay with them. The day's almost over. He went in to stay with them. While he was reclining at the table with them, he took bread, spoke a blessing, and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened. They recognized Jesus, and he disappeared from their sight. Guys, he just walked to Emmaus with them and talked to them for like 3 hours. They weren't blinded. They weren't physically blinded. Okay. So I'm going over different instances in scripture of where, like, okay, here's where it's speaking about their perception has changed and their eyes are blinded in that regard, versus here's an actual blind person who gets his sight restored. Okay. These are his disciples, by the way. These two disciples have like a 3-hour conversation with him, and it even says they didn't recognize him. They still could see the feet that they're walking in front of their feet. They're walking. They could still see the path that they're walking on. They could still see the guy they're talking to, but their perception was changed where they didn't recognize him. And then when they get to the table and he breaks the bread, their eyes are opened, and then they recognize who they've been talking to this whole time. So just showing you an example of how your sight, your eyes being opened, it doesn't mean physical blindness every single time. It can be your perception of what you can now see, even though your eyes were physically, technically open before. Now you're seeing different things with your eyes because God in some way is opening your eyes. Now, can the devil open your eyes as well to see things that you didn't see when your eyelids were open previously? Yeah, he can. He does it all the time. It's a part of witchcraft. Are hallucinogens part of witchcraft? Yes. That's why I don't do DMT. I don't recommend you try the experiment of people trying to see codes and letters and after doing DMT, looking through lasers. I don't recommend that for you. I can already tell you from God's word that he spoke and everything had instructions and all of creation to do what it does. I don't need to see it. I see the outward effects of it. I don't need to see every single piece of the car on the inside of the engine to know that it works on the outside and to enjoy the car. I just need to trust that God said I made the car and all the internal component pieces on the inside, many of which that you'll never see or understand until you're glorified. Okay, fine. Okay. Thank you for the car. Thank you for thinking about me. Thank you for putting me here. What do you want? What else do you want to talk about, God? I'm not going to obsess over things that he didn't offer to let me know, but he did already tell me, by the way, I spoke with my breath, my resonance and my breath spoke, and I created all things because he can do that. It's possible. The rebellious angels knew it was possible and asked to try to tap into that power because they wanted to do something that was outside of the intended creation. They wanted to make their own creation their spiritual offspring. John 9:35-41. When Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, he found the man and said, so by the way, this is another guy. Who is he, sir? He replied, he found the man and said, do you believe in the Son of Man? Who is he, sir? He replied, tell me so that I may believe in him. You've already seen him, Jesus answered. He's the one speaking with you. Lord, I believe, he said, and he worshiped Jesus. Then Jesus declared, for judgment I've come into this world, so that the blind may see, and those who see may become blind. Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this, and they asked, are we blind too? If you were blind, Jesus replied, you would not be guilty of sin, but since you claim you can see, your guilt remains. Now, the reason why I added this particular passage after we just went over the Mark 8 passage where he heals a physically blind man, the Luke 24 passage where he speaks about eyes opening, but it's just awareness and perception of men who were not physically blind. All right, so we got two sides. We got the spiritual implication of someone's perception, their eyes being open, and we got the actual physical, biological concept of someone being born blind. Now here, Christ is tying both ideas together as he's speaking to a man he healed of blindness. and reprimanding the Pharisees for their spiritual blindness at the exact same time. So this is why it can mean both. It depends on the context. He's literally telling the Pharisees, you guys are blind and you're guilty of sin. Because that's what we're, even in First Enoch, it talks about men becoming aware of God's ways and walking in his ways, and they have their eyes opened and they're no longer blind. They become good men, righteous men. And in this moment here, he's literally talking to a blind man and explaining, I come in the world so that the blind can see. Right? He says, for judgment I've come into this world so the blind may see and those who see may become blind. Their perception and their awareness is going to, because of their unbelief and their unrighteousness, it's going to affect their mind because of their wickedness. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the magical practitioners I went over earlier at the start of this all mention Kabbalah. Let you do your own historical research on first century Judaism and Kabbalah. So there's a reason that there is a spiritual blindness with the Pharisees, and they refuse to see Christ for who he is or believe the miracles that God's doing through him, that he is the Messiah. And they've become blind because it's going to be a part of their judgment. Just like other people in Scripture become blind in judgment, physically blind and spiritually blind. Sodom and Gomorrah, physically blinded in judgment before they were judged even further. Right? 2 Kings chapter 6, Elisha spiritually blinds the army, an entire army. Isaiah 28, 18 through 23. I thank the Father for this wonderful kingdom come passage. It's a beautiful prophecy, beautiful promise. On that day, the deaf will hear the words of the scroll, and out of the deep darkness of the eyes, the blind will see. God spoke. How can they not believe if they do not hear? Romans 10:14. God speaks and life creates. Jesus said, I give you words of life. My words are life and eternal life. Jesus, John 6:63 says, what does he say? John 6:63. He says, the spirit gives life, the flesh profits nothing. The words I've spoken to you are spirit and they are life. God is spirit. When he speaks his words into creation, that's still his spirit. When you speak the words of God that he says are his words, we live on every word of the mouth of God. Jesus repeated what he heard his Father say. His Father's doctrine was his doctrine. When you speak the words of life, you are speaking power. You don't have to use witchcraft. You don't have to use imprecations, enchantments, and sorcery. You can speak power. You can speak life with your words. And on that day, the deaf will hear the words of the scroll, and out of the deep darkness, the eyes of the blind will see. The humble will increase their joy in Yahweh. The poor among men will rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. For the ruthless will vanish, the mockers will disappear, and all who look for evil will be cut down. Those who indict a man with the word, who ensnare the mediator at the gate, who with false charges deprive the innocent of justice. Those are all bad ways to use your words. They indict a man with the word, they ensnare the mediator, and they bring false charges against the innocent. Those are bad ways to use your word. That's wicked ways to use your mouth. Right? James 3:10, with the tongue we curse men and praise God. This should not be, brothers. Right? Therefore, Yahweh, who redeemed Abraham, says of the house of Jacob, no longer will Jacob be ashamed, and no more will his face grow pale. For when he sees his children around him, the work of my hands, they will honor my name. They will sanctify the Holy One of Jacob, and they will stand in awe of the God of Israel. What a beautiful, beautiful future promise of the people with bad words are going to go away. There's no more sorceries, witchcraft, trying to put a spell on you, which is another word for enchantments. With their words, trying to corrupt, change, manipulate, and people's eyes will be opened physically. People's hearts and minds, their mind's eye, their eyes, through their mind and perception will be open to recognize the Christ, to walk in the ways of God. And at the glorified state, you know what? I don't doubt that you'll have the ability to see the fabric of all things created by the word of Yahweh. So I don't think that what they're doing with the simulation theory now is they're taking it and they're trying to put it into a place of, oh, look, these people are seeing this stuff, which truly may be there, but they're taking it to, oh, and this just proves you're in a simulation. You're in a type of matrix, right? And they're not telling you, oh, this is the word of Yahweh that created all things. They're just saying, oh, you're in a simulation. You do. So what are the moral implications of being in a simulation? Well, that nothing matters. If you're in a simulation, what does any of this matter? I personally have watched the simulation theory being pushed for like 10 years now, online specifically. And I think this is another facet of it to try to push it. They're, like I said, they're taking this specific concept. Do demons already know that if you have these two variables, to this mind altering substance plus looking through condensed light, that you could see the fabric of reality that Yahweh created? I mean, this is the testimony of hundreds of people. Okay. So if that's the testimony and it's consistent and people continue to do this and say they're still seeing the same thing, and did the demons already know this and have led people to do this experiment so then they can take them in their newfound surprise and newfound awareness of, oh my goodness, where are we? What is this place? And then say, oh, you're in a simulation. And then the natural question comes, well, who made the simulation? The demons aren't going to tell you Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth. They're going to tell you Zeus did it. Go check out my Investigating Babylon series, and you'll understand why I say that. Go check out our 42 series. You'll understand why I say that. And as we go, I thought I'd say this for last. What did we just talk about? We went over Exodus chapter 7, the Egyptian magical arts. We went over the ideas of the watchers wanting to speak power in their enchantments, their magical arts, in order to create reality or change reality. We talked about imprecations and bindings for speaking and writing. We read Jubilees 48, 7 through 13, where the angel tells Moses Satan was helping the Egyptian magical, the Egyptian magicians. Satan was helping them. Okay? We know they worship Satan in Egypt as Ra, as Ptah, as Amun-Ra, different names. So what do we see here? What do we see here? What is so famous about ancient Egypt? We've all stared at this for years, guys. We've stared at this for years. This is ancient Egypt. You guys notice anything about ancient Egypt? A place of high-level magic and sorcery? All of their temples, venerated structures to their gods, are filled with writings. They put their writings on everything, filling it with everything. A people known for their witchcraft and sorcery. Isis was considered to be a head magician in ancient Egypt. You know, the consort of Ra, the mother of Osiris. Anubis was supposed to be one of the chief musicians. They had spells they would read out, right? They created their own Bible. It's called the Book of the Dead, to where there's spells and incantations in the Book of the Dead. And they put nothing but writing to their gods, praises to their gods, praises to their false gods, all over their buildings. And it still couldn't save them. Still couldn't save them. Now we just look at the remnants of Egypt destroyed in shame as Yahweh has judged them. Just like he judged the rebellious angels and the oath, even though they had access to the oath and they were powerful with it, still couldn't save them, still couldn't protect them from being judged over the great sin they committed. Magic is like a temporary high, just like DMT. Makes you think you're greater than you are, and Yahweh will show you who's who at the end of days, at the final judgment. Sometimes the judgment's before them, but definitely just in case you died, like Ecclesiastes say, people sometimes the righteous live long lives, the unrighteous live long lives, and are not judged in this life. Same thing. First Enoch 22 even talks about this as well. How some of these people that are in Sheol, they were not judged in their life, but yet they're waiting for the final judgment when they stand before the judge. So it's interesting, right? In the temple to Solomon, was it filled with writings to false gods all over it, hieroglyphs everywhere? No, it's not. Guys, there's even a movie, I don't know if you know, it's kind of a deep pop culture, deep cut. You know, there was a movie about 2004, 2005 or whatever. It came out. It was called 13 Ghosts. And it was about this glass house that was built, and all these spells and enchantments were written on the floors and the walls of this glass house, because they could slide the doors and the walls back and forth in this like specialized glass house to keep demons entrapped behind the spells on the glass walls. It was a long time ago. If you has any questions, you can put them in the live chat. We'll take a few questions before we go. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you shouldn't get high on mind-altering substances. Yes, Carmela. Yes, they could very well be seen, the fabric of creation, with those specific two concepts, right? Changing the perception of their mind for what their eyes see, and looking through condensed light, which is a part of creation. And it could be allowing them to see a frequency of light that allows them to see the spoken word of Yahweh. That is the commands for everything to be what it is. Everything has to have commands to be what it is, and that code will become that instruction. Call it code is a weird word, right? It's the instruction, right? Like we read from the oath, or the idea of 1 Enoch 69. Yahweh spoke with this powerful oath to create the instruction for the sun and moon to stay in their places in the firmament to create their circuits. Same thing with the seas, the foundations of the earth. Okay, so if people are actually under a specific set of circumstances able to see the instructions of the Father for how you're supposed to be, like your creation, like I said in the videos we watched, they could even put the laser across their skin and look at it, and they could see a different letters and numbers on their skin through the laser. And that was what was so phenomenal. It wasn't like they're just seeing the laser on a specific wall and everyone looks at it and it's the same laser, and it's just, possibly some sort of refractive phenomenon from, the manufacturer inscription on the inside of the lasers. No, it's nothing like that. Like, they move the laser, the code changes. They put the laser, they look through the laser onto a different substance, and they see different instruction code, right? That's an interesting claim. And hundreds of people are claiming to have done it. That's a very, very interesting claim, because if they put the laser ticket off the wall and then put it onto their arm, and then it said the exact same letters and numbers, then you'd be like, okay, there's something going on with the actual laser, the way the laser's made, right? Looking weird. But now it's changing. They're seeing different letters and numbers on different surfaces they put it on, whether biological or non-biological, like an actual wall, right? But this is reality that we live in, okay? These curtains that are next to me, those have been formed with the cotton that's been spun And everything that makes up the reality of that cotton that has been spun is now holding itself together because the code tells it to. It's been spun in a way to where it maintains that form and that structure according to how the code or the instructions for that material is harvested from the plant, turned into yarn, right? So I can understand how the code or the instructions would change depending on how the material is changed or impressed upon or manipulated or tied off or strengthened or made weaker, made thinner, like all those types of things. So this is basically just how the fathers designed all things to work. I don't know if anybody studied like basic physics, but they, they're claiming that they claim that technically this glass is not a solid structure, that it's just a collection of molecules held together by energy. And that's what forms the water, the H2O, to bind itself together. That's what forms the glass molecules to bind itself together. And so as a result, they don't know how that energy causes those things to communicate, to know how to bind itself with certain things. They don't really know how that energy exists without dissipating or trying to change or transfer. But yet we manipulate that energy with different materials to make clothing, shoes, eyewear, electrical cords that can hold electrical impulses for sound. Like we manipulate that, the fabric of the substances we fashion from the earth, what the earth produces for us to fashion with. And all of that has been already predetermined that it could be made into something. That's why you can't make a shirt out of glass. You could try, but it's not going to be a shirt. Right? So it's predetermined in the substances that we use and make things with, and the water that we drink. Water is predetermined to be water, not to turn into diamonds. So in the fabric of the things, of the molecules that make up soil, gemstones, water, trees, it had to be told, this is what you're going to be. And this is the limitations of what you can do. And this is the variables of what you can become. Hopefully that helps a little bit. No, SNX there. They haven't been able to, at least all the videos I've seen on it and the people that are reporting on it, they'll try to like write down the characters they're seeing, and they all come away with what they can, because remember they're in a DMT state, but they still are like cognizant enough to be able to like take instruction and have an inquisition, like have an inquisitive nature about them. This is why I kept trying to stress at the beginning of the show, for everyone in the live chat that has no experience with the hallucinogen, which I don't, but for everyone that has no experience with it, typically with the DMT, they were taking the stuff, sniffing it, whatever, and then just passing out for 10 minutes, right? But they're clearly microdosing or something. They're taking a smaller, varied amount of it to where they're still cognizant and aware and can explore what they're seeing and communicate it. And they're trying to like draw it, since they can't take a picture of it with a camera because the camera is not your actual eye. The people are only seeing this and sharing their mutual testimony, and their mutual testimony is matching that they're all seeing the same things. So that's interesting. And no one's been able to interpret it. I would lovingly suggest I'm giving an interpretation tonight. That the Bible's already told us what this is. If what these people are claiming to see is really there, and it's not some sort of weird mass hallucination, again, this is why it's so important. I showed you that video that the guy said that he didn't tell him what he was going to do. He didn't tell him what the experiment was. He just gave him a little hit of DMT, waited till the effects started, and then said, hey, by the way, I'm going to put this laser on the wall. Look at the laser from the side and tell me what you see. Look through the laser at the wall and tell me what you see. And he didn't tell the guy the experiment ahead of time. And the guy reports the same thing that everybody else has been seeing. So no, I don't think they have an interpretation, because the people that are doing this are not believers. I'm trying to show the interpretation from Scripture. Like we already know the Father is given form, fashion, and function through his instruction in his word to all things. This is why his commandments, his instructions, his Torah is settled in the heavens. Psalm 119. Twilight is asking, do you think we'll be able to see some of these things in the unseen realm before that great day? Oh, I think, yeah. Well, unseen realm. I'm assuming that you're just using that terminology to talk about like angels and demons kind of thing. And yes, I do think you will. I think you will. I think that the things that come out of the pit in Revelation 9, I don't think they're mankind. They're spirit, in my opinion, they're spirit kind. So that's one. If you're alive and at that point, yes, you'll be seeing some spiritual attacks by actual spiritual entities before the coming of the second coming of Christ. WJ Camp is asking, hey, Sean, you ever seen the videos from the Alaskan FAA weather cams right here on YouTube? They're interesting. So, yeah, brother, we covered not the Alaskan one, but there's one in Colorado that we covered that also saw the sphere multiple times. People have, everyone else wants to say, it's just water. It's just water. It's a water spot. And I'm like, guys, I didn't know that water spots could have hot spots on them, local hot spots on them from moving under the sun. Because the anyway. So yeah, I don't think it's a water. I think it's literally Mother Babylon. So yes, not those particular cameras, brother, but other cameras we have, yes. Talked about it. Joshua Delgado is asking, in 2 Thessalonians 2:9, it says, whose coming is by the work of Satan. Do you think Satan brings him forth through sorcery, or what do you think Paul meant? I think it's Revelation chapter 9. Yeah, I think it's Satan is allowed to unlock the abyss and let out Apollyon. That's the man of lawlessness. That's the one that's going to come out and attack all nations, including persecute believers. That's why he's called the destroyer. That's the one who's going to sit in the temple and declare himself to be God. Scott's asking, hey, brother, how you doing? He's asking, where's the book with the conversation had by the blinded army to their king when they got back? Exactly, right? It's like, so wait. Like, imagine the king of Aramea seeing his army return unusually late and go, so wait, I sent you to kill Elisha. You walked with him 12 miles to a different city, and then you had king with the guy that I'm trying to kill, the king of Israel. You just had a meal with him. Nobody threw a steak knife at him. Nobody tried to strangle him with the napkin. Like, what? No one threw a chair at him like it's WWE. Like, what happened here, guys? And you just came back? Like, it's like I'm going to be happy? You just came back? Yeah, that's a strange conversation. That's right, sweetie. If you're a fictional, imaginary, dumb space rock spider, you can make shirts of glass. That's right. Yeah, next level. This is what I was talking about throughout this presentation, is like they must be like have figured out some way to microdose in a very manageable way, because I thought anything I've ever heard of DMT that is completely knocks you out for like 10 minutes at least. No, Timmy, I haven't heard of that app. Ruben, not tonight, brother. We're not trying to focus on a different book tonight. Just trying to take questions pertaining to what we presented tonight. All right. So P Bear is saying Timothy Alberino, also known as Indiana Jones, said the visitors that did the ayahuasca ceremony retreat near his house weren't able to access the grid and entities because they were praying against them. Okay. Possible. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you definitely can disrupt the forces of the enemy with prayer for sure. I'm not sure the full context of that story, but okay. Yeah, so can Red. We're all anxiously anticipating when wickedness is gone forever. That's where we pray. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Father, please, we are waiting for you. I often jokingly say to myself under my breath, Isaiah 64:1, may you rend the heavens and come down. This is the prayer of Isaiah. He also hated wickedness and unrighteousness, and he was like, just may you rip open the firmament and just come on down through, Yahweh. Just come on. We are waiting. We are waiting. Malice, are you saying you've been doing these experiments with long-term DMT sessions, or you just know about it? Okay. Yeah, you just know about it. Guys, thank you for being here tonight. That's all we had. Appreciate you. Like, share, and subscribe. If you like this video, drop me a comment. Tell me what you thought was interesting, at which point. Put a timestamp if you want. Give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments if you're watching this later. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Check us out in the video description. Go check out some of our Brave tea. We have 2 different blends we think you'll love. It's our own personal tea company, so I hope that you guys love it. Go check out our Patreon. We're putting up additional videos other than our actual teachings, our actual advanced and basic courses. So check it out. If you like what we're doing, you think what we're saying and teaching is beneficial, you want to support us, there's ways to do that in the video description below. Okay, so we appreciate you. It's a blessing to us, keeps us going, helps us reach more people. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time.